This has been a busy week. Next week will be a busy week, but we want to kind of unpack what's happened this week. So our in-house studio panel, Quena Gonzalez, Senior Director of Government Affairs at the Family Research Council, and Suzanne Bowdey, Editorial Director and Senior Writer at the Washington Stand. Quena, Suzanne, thanks so much for joining me this evening.
Thanks, Tony.
All right, so in the last segment, I was talking with Congressman Andy Harris, Chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, also a medical doctor, about the battle over the health care. Quena, what are you and your team tracking with regards to this? Is something going to happen before the end of the year?
Oh, goodness. Predicting Congress, Tony. Good luck. There is a strong push in some quarters, even of the Republican Party, to try to extend these COVID-era Obamacare subsidies. And conservatives like Andy Harris and many, many others are hoping that that does not happen, or if it does, that it's either time limited, that we sort of ease into a new model, and that, as you have already said, that we make sure that these subsidies do not fund abortion and gender transition procedures.
I mean, Suzanne, this creates a problem politically for Republicans. As I talked with Dr. Harris, no Republican has ever voted for Obamacare. They have never voted for the subsidies that came during COVID in the Biden administration. If they were to vote for something like this right now, they would be they would be challenged by their own party. Back in their states.
Of course, the media is not going to be their friend in this, and that's just one of the challenges that Republicans face right now. You talked with Dr. Harris about Democrats who basically just want to extend the subsidies and have no interest in bipartisan compromise on this issue. You also mentioned time is short. We're looking at the end of the calendar year for the subsidies to expire. There's 1 week left in Congress for them to negotiate something. That seems unlikely, especially considering, third, Republicans aren't on the same page themselves about what they want to do for an alternative. And lastly, getting some of those moderate Republicans along with Democrats to agree on something like the Hyde protections, which for us is non-negotiable. That is a tall, tall battle, even for Mike Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see anything happening before the end of the year. If they're going to do real change, it's going to require some diligence, some work. And I don't think they should put a Band-Aid on this. I think they should really go in and provide, as Senator Rick Scott has proposed, using the health savings accounts, making this more of a doctor-patient transaction as opposed to a insurance company.
Yeah, Tony, you're absolutely right. This sort of end-of-year urgency to just get something done so we can go home for Christmas and say we did it is a really, really dangerous time in Washington.
But that's how they operate. I mean, that's the memory muscle we have here. But the Speaker and others are trying to break that and reshape the way Congress thinks.
And the reality is, when it comes to Obamacare, we actually have the opportunity to do that. The plans for 2026 have already been written, have already been promulgated, and so this end-of-year urgency to please do something is much more political than it is an actual reality.
They've known all this time that this was going to sunset, and they had plenty of time to do something. They shouldn't have shut the government down. They should have been negotiating.
Democrats set this sunset 3 years ago. We've known this was coming. So the urgency is in some ways a false one and a purely political one.
Yeah, but again, I go back to the point I made with Dr. Harris. I think the Obamacare, or maybe the Biden-era subsidies for COVID was simply to prop up a failing system. And this, if they don't do something, it's going to expose that Obamacare does not work.
That's right.
The Republicans have been saying that all along, but the American people are going to see it. All right, I want to move on to another topic, the Defense Authorization Act. A little bit of wrangling there to get that out. Finally got it out. Who wants to tackle that?
Quena, you go first.
The NDAA, as it's called, the National Defense Authorization Act, passes every year. It's one of the few pieces of legislation that we can count on, Tony, that passes every single year. It's called must-pass legislation, and it's because it has pay raises and other necessities for military families and for the military itself. And so everybody and their mother tries to attach whatever they're trying to get through Congress to this.
Because so few bills actually pass.
And this bill must pass every year. And once again, we're down to the wire on the NDAA. And coming down to this wire, we were very concerned at FRC because we knew that there had been some things that had been inserted into the NDAA that really don't belong there. And some of those affect our pro-life, pro-family policies. And we've been watching those very closely.
And we were able to get some out.
Yes. Very exciting.
Yeah, so it was overall a good bill, never perfect, but some years better than others. I would put this In what category, Suzanne?
I would say great.
Yeah.
I mean, there are things that we wish were in there, but gosh, I mean, when you consider they've prohibited all the DEI, we got out taxpayer-funded IVF, which, as we know, destroys embryos. We also have family leave now, not just if you're adopting a child, but for foster families. I mean, there's a lot of good in this bill.
All right, Suzanne, I'm going to go to a non-Hill story that you've been tracking that's worth noting. Fill us in.
Right. I think a lot of people are aware now of the controversy that's been happening in Loudoun County. I mean, it's hard to keep track of the controversies in Loudoun County where the school district is concerned. You know, we've had some teachers who've been suspended and for using wrong pronouns or for fighting the transgender policy there. But earlier this year, there were 2 Christian boys who were in a locker room, and a biological girl came in and began filming them. Naturally, they were extremely uncomfortable. They went and talked to school administrators, and actually it was the boys that ended up getting in trouble. They were suspended under the auspices of sexual harassment because they referred to this girl, biological girl, in their locker room as a girl. So the parents have now sued the school district. But what happened this week, which is absolutely awesome, and just it's a great sign that we have the Trump administration here to do things like this, but the DOJ is joining this suit. They have a motion to intervene, which will really help these boys out. I mean, this never should have happened.
Again, this goes back to what it looked like a freight train coming, just a few years ago with all this gender these ideology that was being forced down the throats of children and parents as a result of the Obama administration. But because parents stood up and pushed back at local school boards, they risked being called domestic terrorists. But it was for their children, and they did not stop. We have seen a reversal of that cultural push.
Right, and this is actually one of the few holdouts remaining. I feel like Virginia is really standing alone when they're protecting these really unpopular, controversial policies.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's a good news story that when we stand up and speak truth, eventually you'll get enough people who say, yeah, they're right. Their warning was correct. Suzanne, Quena, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks, Tony.